I was surprised, to be honest, because I didn't think that Brothers would put together an NRL proposal. I thought it would be a BRL type proposal if they did it. And also there were a couple of big bids out there, 3 other bids in Queensland already, and I thought, gee, this is a very high mountain to climb for Brothers, a lot of money and a lot of organisation, and I was surprised, but then I thought about it, and I thought this isn't such a silly idea because you've got a Brothers Club in just about every town in Queensland, so you've already got the loyalty, you've got the tradition, and it's a wonderful institution, so I couldn't see why not. Well, the strongest thing is the fact that Brothers is a well-known name. It's a tradition throughout Queensland, not in other states, mind you. The others might look on it as something unusual and wonder what it's all about, but there's this tremendous tradition of Brothers confraternity. And when I called the Rugby League, I grew to admire Brothers for their mateship and their team spirit and that strength. You could go to a town and not know anyone, but go to a Brothers Leagues club and you'd be made welcome because you followed Brothers in Brisbane. That sort of thing. It was like a big brotherhood, wasn't it? Yeah. No pun intended.
Yeah, that's right.
I love the BRL days. You and I are the same there, Anthony, I know. I really do miss the BRL, the days when everyone who lived in Brisbane barracked for the team in his district. Or you might not have lived in the Grange to cheer for Brothers, you might have just gone to a Catholic school. But because I was over in Barton, I was a Wests man. I tried not to be biased when I was commentating, but I did have a bit of a leaning towards the Panthers in the mid-70s. They played some pretty good footy. But those were great days, and I think people now tend to underestimate the strength of the Brisbane competition in those days. Certainly Sydney fans underestimated it, because when it came to the best of Sydney playing the best of Brisbane, on an equal footing, without our players being in their team, as they were in the 70s, we beat them as many times, if not more, than they beat us. Probably the 87 grand final is the one that stands in my memory because we all knew Brothers was coming to an end and it was a nostalgic moment, a significant end of an era. And it was so sad because it's a great club. And I felt that these clubs that were the great clubs of the 70s and 80s when I called the Rugby League, they paid the price for being too successful. If you think about it, Valleys, Brothers, even Norths to some extent, they were the very powerful clubs in that era. And it was a shame that they paid the players as much as they did for the bonuses for winning, and they built clubhouses that were probably a little too opulent for the era and paid the price because they were in so much debt, and eventually they had to fold. And you know, it's wonderful that Brothers have come back in a different form. It's hard, but I have to say David Wright, because he's my old mate that I commentated with, and I started in the ABC in 1971, and I think David joined the commentary in about the mid-70s after he played for Australia in 1975 against New Zealand. And what a terrific club player he was, captain of the team, a running, clever ball player, very strong. A real inspiration, I thought, to Brothers Club when he was playing. And then when he became a commentator, he was very fair, a good bloke, and had a wonderful empathy with players because he'd been there himself in the front line, and he put it in the right terminology, and he still does to this day. Pete played before I came to Queensland, so he was one of those legendary figures that I always associate with Queensland and with Brothers. 68 grand final, was that right? Was he in that side?
Yes.
I think he would have been, yeah. 67, 68.
Yeah.
And Pete, of course, played for Australia, so coming from Western New South Wales, I knew all the stars in Sydney, but I even knew Pedro Gallagher because he was a tough, hard nut from Queensland, and you always respected those bushies from up in Queensland.
Yeah.
Oh, Douthie. I know Douthie through cricket. I still do. He's a mad keen cricketer, but what a goal kicker he was. Only a skinny little winger, but a great finisher, and one of the stalwarts for Brothers through that period that he played late 70s, early 80s. Oh, crowd pleaser, wasn't he, Tipsy? Never looked like he could play the full 80 minutes to me. Was always a little bit big, perhaps not as fit as the modern day NRL player, but a bloke who had a lot of skills and could get the crowd excited just from the moment he ran on the field. I don't quite know why it was, but he would give you a very good first 40 minutes and then probably go and sit on the bench for the rest of the game. Ah, yes, I remember Skinny Wayne playing at fullback and playing at centre for Brothers. Very fast. Played for Queensland, played for Australia on a tour of New Zealand, 1970. In today's match, today's game, he would have got smashed because he was about my build, about 78 kilos and 6'1" tall, all skin and bone, but a clever player, as you would find out from his coaching deeds later in his career. Mark was a similar sort of build to Benny, tall and athletic, quick, and to a lot of New South Welshmen, who was Mark Thomas, because he got picked to play for Australia, I remember, in a World Cup in about 75, and very good club player, very quick and clever, but didn't last very long. Quinny was salt of the earth, tough, very good defensive player who could play either in the forwards or the backs, I think. But I remembered him as playing like a lock or in the centres, where he was a really strong defensive player. Yeah, Bales was a hooker. I remember him as a schoolboy at State High, and then he went on and played rugby league. Very clever, quick around the field, had long hair, had a bit of a short fuse, and I seem to remember he used to get in a bit of trouble with referees, but good player. Oh, Smokin' Joe. What a crowd pleaser. A member of the 1980 Norths Premiership side, and in 87, I think, man of the match, when Brothers won that grand final, and he set the crowd alight with a magnificent run from inside his own half. Yeah, he was part of that Queensland side that scored that fantastic try that Ray Warren called. I'll never forget that commentary. Yeah. And he was a very classy player, wasn't he, Mark? He could have. Well, Strutty was one of the cleverest little halfbacks that came up from New South Wales to Queensland. There wasn't much of him, but what there was all rat cunning. His nickname, of course, was the Rat, and he could play up to referees. He used to specialise in taking a dive, milking penalties. He taught Wally everything he knew, but a real deep thinker of the game, and later became a very clever coach. Wow, that's impressive, isn't it? I didn't know that. Yeah. And it just goes to show the strength across Queensland, especially in the country areas. There's so many young footballers who come out of the country and later on go on to fame and fortune, and we don't realise what their roots were. Yeah. Just imagine if Brothers could call on these fellas when they get their bid together to come back and play for the team. Yeah. How strong that. Credit to the confraternity of clubs, isn't it, that they have that strength. And also they're obviously laying down the right kind of roots for these players to go on and become legends. What am I doing? A bit of everything, actually. Anthony, I'm getting on in years, as you can see from the grey hair. I've got a few lines on the face, but to think that I started with the ABC up here in 1971, it's a long while ago, but the memories are still vivid and very pleasant. I had a great time with the ABC for 18 years up here. Then I went to Channel 7 for 12 years, and since 1997 I've been freelancing, so I still do some TV work. I called the Olympics, I did athletics and canoeing at London last year, but I don't do much TV now. I mainly write books, actually, on sport. I've done 7 published books in the last 10 years. I do a bit of MC work, public speaking. If anyone wants me, I'm available to talk about sport, of course. Yeah. And I compare golf days and things. I've been playing golf this morning and sort of combining work with fun.
Well, Peter Meares, thanks for joining us on Brothers TV.
Thanks, Anthony, and best of luck with the bid.
Brothers NRL, we can do this.